Hi everyone, it's Liliana Bogo here and Podcast Friday. Yay, yay, yay. And if you caught the intro over on Instagram, I spoke about this is the penultimate episode in our series on Podcast Fridays. Boo, sad face. Um, yes, the season's coming to an end, but I've loved sharing Podcast Friday with all of you and putting out the topic and discussing what's been pertinent about podcasting. We've spoken about equipment, what mics, what handheld recorders, microphones, mixers, all of that. We've looked at that. We've looked at to record live or pre-record. What's the preference and what's the better way to do it? We discovered there isn't a better way. It's your preference. We looked at how to get incredible guests and what you need to do to ensure that you have great guests and prepare them for the show. Yes, we did. And this is the great thing about it. There's so many things that we could go into, but I want to make sure that we have packed enough information to share. Now, the one thing that we didn't do at the very beginning is say, why should you podcast? Yes, every man, dog, woman, and cat seems to have a podcast these days. Why should you podcast? And what can podcasting do for you? So here's the deal, and here's the thing. Podcasting is not a fad. It is here to stay. And I'm going to discuss four ways that podcasting can actually help grow your brand, increase your reach. So let's jump right into it. The first way number one, is a podcast can actually set you up to be seen as the expert in your field. You come across, once you set up a podcast, you're behind the mic, all of a sudden you're working that expert status that says, yes, I know what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is my theories. These are my reasons. This is my expertise. That's what you're selling to the crowd, that when you set up a podcast, you're instantly setting your brand up and setting you up as the expert of your brand, of your business, in your field. That's the first thing. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I've just started my business and my brand, and I don't like the term expert. I actually don't feel like I am an expert. What do I do? Here's the thing. You don't have to even be the expert. You can take the Oprah path and say, hey, I'm going to be known as a person that interviews other experts, and let's call it the expert by association. Think about it. When Oprah started, nobody knew who Oprah was, but she was interviewing these people who were known and famous for what they do and did, and she interviewed some incredible people over her time, and she's now the Oprah we now know, love, and like. Some of you might not, but generally Oprah is queen. So that's the thing. When you get known as a person that interviews the experts, you get the expert by association, because you learn from them and able to feed back to your tribe, your audience, whatever you want to call them. This is the knowledge I'm gathering. This is the knowledge of people who've come in onto my show, onto my podcast. This is the knowledge I've put out. Now join me to always listen to more knowledge from more incredible people. And then it's expert by association. So that is a great way to actually leverage your expertise. Now, some people may say, you know what? I have a busy plate. I don't have time to set up a podcast. But I want to be known as an expert. Then you can take the path called OPP. I know that's not the phrase if any of you are a 90s baby and know the song. But OPP stands for Other People's Podcasts. OPP, Other People's Podcasts. You want to be known as an expert? Leverage other people's podcasts. Get yourself invited on as a guest on other people's podcasts. And that way, they are doing the work. They are telling their people, their listeners, hey, this person I think is an expert in their field. They know their brand. And to coin a phrase, they know their onions. That is a very weird phrase about knowing onions. But this is the fun part. So you're leveraging somebody else's podcast to become the expert, be instantly being seen as the expert. You don't have to do anything. By being on that person's show, they've already pre-qualified you as the expert. All you have to do is being able to deliver your message in a very salient way. So catch me for the next 3 points where we talk about the other 3 ways to increase your reach and grow your brand using podcasting. Hi guys, welcome back to the next installment of our conversation around how to grow your reach and your brand using podcasting. So we've talked about becoming the expert, being seen as the expert in your podcast with your podcast, and this helps you grow your brand, grow your influence, and that's great. The second way, number 2, is that you get to create new connections to your audience. You gain new audience simply by this. Podcasts are borderless. So you never know who's actually going to listen because you can't control who is listening unless you make it a private podcast. Podcasting allows people globally to listen to you. You could reach people as far-flung as Fiji, and that's not a maybe. That's an actuality for me. I checked my stats. I've had people in South Korea, Fiji, Greece, places that I did not think I would have people listening to my podcast. Saudi Arabia as well. I've had people from those places listen into my podcast. So you're introducing new people to your brand, your message, your business, and you. So podcast is a great platform to reach new people. And it's not just a static reaching new people type thing where you're pushing out information. It's more intimate. And the good thing about it is that with that, what I mean about more intimate is that you can make direct conversation to your audience. You can make direct conversation to your tribe, audience, tribe, clients, customers, whatever word that works for you. We'll use audience and tribe. So if I intermingle them, that's okay. So with your tribe, and they are now getting to understand your who, what, where, and why. Why do you have this business? Why do you have this message? Why do you have this brand? They get to almost get a behind the scene glimpse at what it is you're doing and what it is that you are putting out into the world. They get to understand beyond your marketing, beyond you selling. They get to understand you. And here's the great thing. You can use podcasting to understand your tribe. You can, when if you do a live podcast, even if you don't do it live, you put it out, you ask for feedback, you share it on social media, you get interaction. And then you can use it in such a way to say, hey, what do you like about this? Or what do you like about this product? What do you like about this idea? And you almost can use it to poll your potential clients to get a real sense about what it is that they want, need, what are their pain points, how to reach them in such a way that it feels like you are talking directly to them. This is important because it helps you with your business and helps you reach your people. So to recap, it helps you create an audience, a connected audience, because once you have a connected audience, you have people who will loyally listen to you, loyally follow your brand, and who will loyally commit to sharing your brand and actually purchasing from you. You know the idea that people buy from those we like and trust. This podcasting helps build that trust. It builds that rapport. It builds that connection. So yes, that can never be a bad thing. So join me for the third installment where we talk about, tell you in the third installment, catch you then. Okay, we're back. So we're talking about point 3. And with this, we're talking about content. You know what they say, content is key. King. Content is key or king, depends on where you are. I can't speak this afternoon because I don't know why. So here's the deal. We know that we need constant content in our business to retain and re-engage our people, to engage people that don't know us, to actually continue have feedback, interaction with our tribe, our people who are listening, who are connecting, so people feel engaged with our brand. And so content is key. Did you know that your podcast can give you a constant stream of content that you can repurpose? So take it, for instance, now you've produced a podcast. Yay! You interviewed somebody. And podcast is done. What do? You do a quick Insta live and whether it's Facebook, Instagram, and I think LinkedIn has started sneakily doing their own lives, but we'll talk about that another time. And you're saying, hey, folks, I've just had so and so on my show. They were amazing. These are the points that they've just made. This is what the show was focusing on. Join us and listen in. The links are below, or the links are in the bio, whatever you want to do. But right there, you already have content that you've created outside of the blog post, outside of your podcast. And I just said blog post. That's another way. You've done the interview. You've done your podcast. You can turn the podcast into a blog post and share it. And some people do, what they do is they take the show notes, they transcribe it, and they have content for people who are hard of hearing, who are deaf, who have challenges with their hearing. And that right there, you are allowing more people to engage with your podcast in a different way. You have some people who still prefer to read. That's another way. You have a blog post, you have the transcription, you have show notes, whatever you want to call them, and how you want to do it is really irrelevant. If you make a blog post, great. If you decide, I'm just going to take the podcast and transcribe it, and there I have and create show notes from that, that's perfect too. So here is the thing. More content. You can even do where you cut down the video, the audios, create little imagery, throw that back on social media. There are a lot of ways. And let's say you're a guest on someone else's podcast. What can you do? Well, simply this. You say, hey, I've just come off this podcast. You do a quick Insta video, or you do a quick live, you write a blog piece, but you start with the Insta video saying, hey guys, I've just been on this podcast, on so-and-so's podcast. These are the top 3 things we spoke about. This is what I'm sharing. The podcast goes live on this date, if it's one that's pre-recorded to go live, and you want to catch it because I share X, Y, and Z. You give links if you already have the links, and then you share it, because then what happens is you're keeping your tribe engaged. You're letting them know what you've been up to, and you're giving them forewarning, and also inviting them in to listen to the podcast. And also it's good because the podcast owner will see that you're engaged with your podcast, and you're inviting your own people into listening. And what happens is they will want to have you back, because it's a mutual situation where basically they're not doing all the heavy lifting in terms of inviting people in to listen. It shows you're a great guest to have on. Why would they want to have you back? So that's the third way. So join us for the last way in the next video. All right. Hey guys, welcome back. And now we're talking about the fourth way. Yeah, the fourth way on how to use a podcast to grow your reach and your brand. So the final way that we're going to talk about today on our Podcast Friday is nailing your delivery. What happens when you start doing the podcast rounds, when you start being a guest on other people's show, when you are doing your podcast and sharing your message? Your ability to share your message in a compelling and engaging way increases. You get to become proficient and highly skillful about delivering those messages in those key points where you're like, damn, you're just dropping all the messages that you're dropping all the goodies in such a way that people are like, yeah, okay, I want to find out more. And what happens is you become so comfortable about delivering your message and sharing your message, either sometimes in front of a camera, in front of, on a mic. You become more confident about public speaking. You become more confident in your ability to share content with other people. You stop worrying about, do I sound okay? Do I do this? Do I do that? You become instantly relaxed and start doing it more often. And what happens is when you start doing it more often, you create more opportunities to do it more often. So if you've done a couple of people's podcasts and you reach out to other people, then you go, oh, I know this person is doing a podcast. Let me reach out to them and see if they want guests. You become more comfortable making those reach outs. And the more you are heard and seen as the expert, the more people want to hear and have you on their show. They want to get you to share your story, get you to share your message on their platform. Or, you then are able to get different quality guests on your show personally if you are running your own podcast. So podcasting can actually help you improve your delivery, your communication skills, and make you a better speaker. Even though this afternoon, clearly I'm failing. But what I'm trying to say is, in essence, is that podcasting can actually help you become better, a better quality speaker, can actually help you deliver your message so your elevator pitch is on point. You're able to drop those nuggets here and there and like, yes, this is my story. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And it's compelling and engaging. So those are the 4 quick ways that podcasting can grow your brand and increase your reach and make you be seen as the expert. So join us. If you haven't subscribe below. This is our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us here, and looking forward to seeing you, talking with you, and sharing some more on our next podcast Friday.